Hello, everyone. A warm welcome to all of you. Good afternoon. I would like to welcome all of you today to Let's Talk About IT, the MRO CAMO Get a Head Start with a Data-Focused Maintenance Concept event. Now, today we have a joint event plan between Lufthansa Systems and Lufthansa Technik, and especially would like to welcome all of you. We have today people coming and joining us from every continent on this planet, except for Australia and Antarctica, as the participant list tells me. Although I am sure that in Antarctica and Australia, they also need a lot of maintenance, I assume that they will be tuning into the recording after the event. Thank you especially to all of you for peeling your eyes away from this riveting footage, which is happening right now on all of the news channels. Today is election day, and I know that we all are glued to the television, so especially thank you to all of you for joining us here at this event on this day where you might have other pressing things as well to do. Joining us today, we have various airlines from Europe, Asia, and Middle East tuning in, so welcome to you. We have aircraft operators, and we have both from classic and eVTOL urban air mobility space, so that's very exciting, something new. We have participants today from universities, the Big Four consulting, other consulting. We even have competitors on this event, and I would like to say to everybody, everybody is welcome. This is a really tough time for our industry, and any tips and tricks that you can pick up, you're welcome to them. Great. So today, let me welcome you to the event again. We have a couple of moments. We're going to talk about housekeeping. First of all, this Skype call is being recorded. So the recording will be shared and will be publicized on LinkedIn and on our Lufthansa Systems website. I think also on Lufthansa Technik website. So check that out after or share it with your colleagues or friends. The chat window, due to data protection, will not be part of the event recording. So anything that you write in the chat, you can or cannot include your name if you want. This will not be recorded. Participants, okay, you are all muted by default. So you can post questions in the chat. I have the chat function open. As long as Skype doesn't kick me out again, I will be reading your questions and I can put them into the event along the way, or we have a question and answer session at the end where everything which is open will be answered. If we don't get to it, we will put it on LinkedIn or maybe email them to you later on. So check LinkedIn. We will post the video of the event and any open questions there in the chat below. So without further ado, our speakers. Today we have Carlos Díaz. He is one of our CAMO MRO experts joining us from Lufthansa Systems. He is an aeronautical engineer, over 10 years of experience working in maintenance for airlines. And before joining Lufthansa Systems, an illustrious, very long career in many areas of maintenance in Latin America, responsible for planning, engineering, training, mechanics, all of this stuff. And he has become, over the past years and months, a leading global expert on digital transformation for CAMO and MRO structures. So both in the classic airline industry as well as the new eVTOL industry space. Next, we have from Lufthansa Technik, Valerie Herrman, and she has a background in business administration and management. She joined Lufthansa Technik all the way back in 2014 as a graduate management trainee and has worked in different functions, dealing with components, landing gear. She's done huge IT projects within the engineering and maintenance space in Germany, as well as the US, and for customers all over the globe. Currently, she is developing a digital planning solution for short-term maintenance, and she is one of the lead consultants for the Maintenance consulting program within Lufthansa Technik. So welcome, Valerie. Finally, we have Anne Pepela, and Anne is a mechanical engineer from training, started with Lufthansa Technik in 2009. And she has participated in tons of internal dual programs with different MRO providers as well as with different customers. She set up the integration of a new MRO provider facility here in Frankfurt for the Lufthansa world, which is a massive project that she can tell us about if you want later, with a strong experience in project management for aircraft base maintenance. And also one of the lead consultants for the Maintwise Consulting. So welcome all three of you. We're very, very happy to have you here. And I'm Erin Beilharz. I am a colleague of all three of these, especially close with Carlos, and I'm a digital experience consultant with Lufthansa Consulting. And it's my pleasure to be your moderator today, and let's get cracking. Today on the agenda, we have the actual airline challenges, what exactly is bothering you with regards to COVID, and how to position your planning with regards to maintenance in this new, very unsure environment that we're working in. We're going to then be moving into a data-focused maintenance concept and the Maintwise method. So this is a consulting methodology really to construct your maintenance conceptualization and pull out a lot of efficiencies in this space. Finally, we're going to take you through a case study with a large American carrier and show you how this works in practice. And then we're going to move on to a question period where, as I said before, you can type things into the chat, and I will pick up your questions as I see fit and get them answered for you. So without further ado, I would like to hand over to my colleague Anne Pepelo. Anne, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Erin. Thanks for the introduction, and hi to all of you as well from my side. Yeah, as we all know, aviation industry in these days is really, really difficult. With the COVID-19 crisis and the impact we have from that on the global air traffic and travel restrictions, as well as on the changes with our customer behavior, we really do suffer from problems and the actual situation. I'd like to show you three values that also visualize how hard it is to work in the aviation field nowadays. The overall amount that governments spend to support us as airline industry is about 160 billion US dollar. So that's not just governments in Europe or the US, it's governments around the world and across the globe to support our industry. Nevertheless, unfortunately, the demand still falling. The worldwide passenger travel in March to April fell by approximately 90% compared to what we know from the previous years. And now, especially during summer, the experts were quite optimistic that until end of that year, we will at least reach a maximum of minus 55% growth rate. But unfortunately, we already know that, from summer to fall, these figures changed, and now we expect for end of this year somehow a figure below 70% of the growth rates and the overall revenue per passenger kilometers compared to the previous year. And as per the forecasts, it's also said that the overall return to pre-crisis level will most probably only come to place in year 2024. A third figure illustrating the actual situation is the aircraft in service. From the minimum of less than 50% of the commercial fleet operating in April, we were back again to 77% in August, but unfortunately also there in summer we reached a plateau, and we already know that this figure will decrease again. So knowing all these things, we know that the market will be really, really tough the next times, the next years. And so for us, it's really, really important to work cost efficient and flexible. So that will be the key for competitive advantages. And therefore, we have to do something. All of us are looking into what can we do to reach these things, cost efficiency and flexibility at the same time. Of course, just in general, it's a problem that every airline is facing, is the trade-off between the time which the aircraft can be used to perform revenue flights and the time which is required to be in maintenance or for maintenance work. Of course, it's the target of everyone to increase flight time and minimize ground time to a maximum, still ensuring high technical quality. Yeah, the balance between flight hours and ground time is actually something that has to be reached, and it's an everyday challenge of all the operators to reach a smooth operation. And what can help us all, and that's why I said that, to reach that smooth operation is the balance between flight hours, ground time, is by a maintenance concept. A maintenance concept actually is the optimized bundling of all due aircraft maintenance program tasks to ensure a most suitable solution considering available ground times, the specific customer targets and framework conditions. Typically known examples that most probably all of you already know for concepts are block and phase maintenance, but of course there is way more in between that. So in the past, the airlines were usually triggered by, okay, we need to improve, we need to save money. That's of course still the case. So saving money is an important point, but especially nowadays, it's also important to focus on the changing framework conditions. So being able to react to what's going on around us is really a need, and that's really a reason why airlines do look into maintenance concepts. Because with that maintenance concept, as said, you can really reach a balanced optimum between operations, flights, and ground times. From our experience, we know that within a maintenance concept, we have about 15% of the overall costs that can be saved. So cost reduction of 15%, which is really essential. And at the same time, it's still possible to be flexible. And there are also additional levers that can be looked at with regards to flexibility. And therefore, we later on show you our case study. And my colleague Valerie will look into these cases and in depth explain how we can reach flexibility and cost efficiency at the same time. As I already described, with all these ongoing changes on the market, we are now in a situation where we can see it's more or less a not to miss opportunity for us to implement a maintenance concept. Even before the ramp up and restart phase, that's a really good idea. Because major changes, like such implementation of a maintenance concept, can especially be done during bigger interruptions, like we do have it now. The coronavirus caused extended aircraft parking, which offers opportunities to restart ops and directly start with an optimized maintenance program, and therefore in an optimized maintenance environment. The bridging effort actually is really low nowadays, as we are in kind of a low season, so lots of aircraft are either parked or less utilized. And as usually people and systems strive for steadiness, it's also a good situation now, because everyone of us is willing to accept a change. We all know that massive effort is required to be successful again, and that's why such implementation, such change can especially be easily done nowadays.
I think that's really interesting, Anne, what you just mentioned about willingness to change, because the human factor is always the major factor in large companies like airlines. I have a specific question with regards to the restart that we're going to be doing. We have a lot of specific maintenance challenges. Aircraft are parked all over the world. What kind of special planning is going to be needed from a maintenance perspective in order to restart?
Yeah, for restart, so thanks, Erin, for the question. For restart, anyways, the planning team has to issue reactivation work packages. So you really have to consider, okay, which aircraft can I utilize best, which maybe has the best values in terms of free time, so that no major maintenance is required in the future, and some other values like, yeah, environmental things. So we can look into that and define based on that really in detail which aircraft is good for reactivation, and as a reactivation work package has to be issued anyways, it's also positive that we can directly implement the bridging tasks. So we have like one ground time where we do the implementation and the reactivation at once. So that's that's really the positive thing why we can do that now with the reactivation and the ramp up. And besides that, I can also offer you one customer example that we have done. So we worked with one European low-cost carrier with more than 50 A320 family aircrafts. And he decided that there's hardly any better time than now to use this phase for a new maintenance concept implementation. So the aircrafts were on ground for extended time period, as I said, so they were parked. The maintenance was not fully loaded, we're waiting for activities, and also the planning was not fully in the daily firefighting mode, which you usually have when you do operate 50 aircrafts during maybe summertime. And those conscious bridging of selected aircrafts were possible, and overall these airlines saved about 50 man-hours per aircraft just with combining these reactivation and bridging checks. And in addition to that, of course, directly experience the benefits of a newly rolled out maintenance concept. And that overall saved a remarkable amount of man-hours for the bridging itself and a remarkable amount of money in the future. So the forecast says that, for that specific airline, we are talking about 10 million euro cost saving per year just with the implementation of a new maintenance concept.
Okay, perfect. I have the first question from the audience, Anne, if you're ready for one. It's a little bit of a deeper question to what I asked you a moment ago. So aircraft are not designed for parking, and after a 12-month parking, a lot of deficiencies are found. Does Technik foresee a specific ground time to bring aircraft back into service?
Yeah, we do have these reactivation ground times depending on where the aircraft stands actually from all the timing thing and how many green time is open. You can also decide, of course, to better jump in with a specific 12 months, 24 months C-check, HMV, however you call it. So it could be, and we also know that from one of our customers, that it's a good idea not just to start with a reactivation pack. And yeah, of course, and obviously, after such a long time frame, there are many things to do, but also that it might be a good idea to directly start with a more heavy layover, that you definitely have the aircraft free for operation for the next 12 to 24 months. So that could also be a good chance for you.
Okay, Valerie, I'm going to ask you, when it comes to data, there's a huge effort for structuring and cleaning specific types of data for a maintenance process. I think that you're going to get into this within the next slides, yeah?
Yes, together with Carlos, who will hopefully support on that topic. But thank you. I will maybe start before we get into the specifics of this data topic to talk a little bit about how our consulting service usually looks like, and also about how we have changed our approach due to the crisis that we are currently in. And then looking at this approach, I think that's then the transition to your question, Erin. We will definitely look at which kind of data do we need for this consulting approach, and what are also pains or obstacles that we are facing in this period. And Carlos will be able also to support with some examples on how this might be solved in the future. Yeah, so Anna has already spoken a little bit about what we understand by the word of maintenance concept. We have transformed this topic into a consulting service, which is called Maintenance. It's a consulting service which enables airlines to efficiently synchronize, as Anna already showed, aircraft maintenance on the one hand and flight operations on the other hand. So in our experience, it's even a little bit more complex like that, because every airline actually faces a conflict of different targets. We have subdivided this into 5 different dimensions. So of course, every airline wants to fly as much as possible, but at the same time, you want to keep your MRO cost as low as possible. It's also important to be flexible in flight operations, but at the same time to ensure a stable flight operations without any interruptions in operations, and all of that while maintaining, of course, a high technical quality of the fleet. And unfortunately, it's often not possible to improve all of these factors simultaneously, which is why exactly where Maintenance comes in. The idea is to identify the individual optimum of an airline. So where is an airline already strong? Where are points where the airline would like to improve, for example, the cost position, and then to find ways to help the airline reach this optimum with specific measures. Normally, what our approach looks like is, like any typical consulting approach that you've probably all seen. We start with an assessment where we collect a lot of data, a lot of information about an airline and its targets, and then go on with the design phase where we simulate different maintenance concepts, and where we then come up with a newly designed maintenance concept for the customer, and we also support implementation if required. But in the current situation, in our opinion, this one-time optimization with one larger project that we do is not the ideal approach, because, as Anna has already pointed out, there are so many things going on at the moment, so many changes to the operations and to the network of an airline, while at the same time, of course, airlines try to keep their invest down to a minimum. It just doesn't make any sense to start one huge maintenance concept project. So our approach is to still start with a status quo analysis and a quick assessment, to have a first impression of the current challenges and the targets, and also to collect a lot of data from an airline, but then have a continuous maintenance concept adaptation, kind of like a subscription that is based on the changes in the framework conditions that are going on and based on the needs of the airline, in order to ensure that we have the optimal maintenance concept for the airline along the way to normal operations. So during the assessment, when it comes to the data part, as I already said, what we look at when we start with the main-wise process, we collect information on a customer's flight plan, on a customer's maintenance program, on planning values, for example. We need to get a feeling of how is the network set up, which are the maintenance stations, which work can be done at which maintenance stations, how much capacity is available, where can things be changed, and which things should stay the same, and so on. And what we often see in this project is that there is a huge effort for collecting, first of all, that data, but then also for structuring and cleaning up the data, because often a low data quality makes this job much more difficult. And then, of course, we don't have the best position for our simulation of new maintenance concepts, which is to follow, because if we have, of course, a low data quality to put in onto our simulation, we won't get the best results out of it. So one example for this is, for us, it's important to know which tasks, which maintenance tasks can be performed at which maintenance stations. That's one important input factor for our simulation, but it's seldom adequately available from our customer systems. And that's now where my colleague Carlos comes in, and hopefully together we will also answer Erin's questions on this topic. Yeah, he will talk now about some thoughts and examples on how to deal with these data.
Yes, thank you, Valerie. Hello to everyone. Let's step in then. In order to answer that question, I think the first step is to check some of the impacts of poor quality data in terms of the whole maintenance value chain. When it comes to making use of these optimized maintenance concepts, the things that Anne and Valerie already talked about, we rely on data. We will be using data repositories in the organizations in order to make this concept livable through all the processes in the value chain of the maintenance organization. So I think the backbone of this relies on the planning and scheduling processes. And in order to understand the importance of data, let us see the impacts of it. If you have poor quality data, then one of the first impacts you will going to have in the organization is a lot of rework. So it's an efficiency impact, which means that at the end, at the bottom line, you will get also financial impacts out of it. There's an important part on the decision making as well, because once you rely on erroneous data, it's like the old saying, trash in, trash out, you will be unreliable on your decision making as well. And when it comes to the whole concept, we wanting to be more predictive, more foreseeable in terms of how we plan our maintenance. We just lose our leverage on that because our data, the one we relied on for our processes, is of no quality or is not available. Of course, out of these impacts, you can make some extrapolations to very tangible financial consequences you may have. Let us see the why of it. I think that data correlation is the key here for when we talk about data-driven processes. If we check the life cycle of data-driven processes, from the acquisition all the way to the historical management of this information, in the center and the cornerstone, you find the analysis of the data. And in order to be able to analyze data, you need to be able at the very beginning to correlate the data in a logical form, in a way that you may want to structure some analysis for your processes, for your decision making, for your indicators, for your metrics, but also for your business. So, without data of quality, without availability of the data, this correlation is not possible. So that's why it's important to focus on this. Some examples on that. I've prepared some screenshots from previous projects with airlines. You will see these are real life examples of very extreme examples. I've shadowed here the parts where you may have an idea which airline this is, in order for you not to know it. But basically, we have a screenshot from the IT tool, from the CMMS, where we see the station, we see the fleet over here, and we see groups of, let's call it planning values. In terms of planning values, we have, of course, all the parts, all the material that's needed for a maintenance task or maintenance work or a program. We have the intervals in terms of flight cycles and flight hours, and we have the very detailed information of the elements of the planning values. In this case, you will see that this program, this CMMS, already gives us a value or an indication, better said, about the missing information here. So the CMMS, the IT tool, is already talking to us, which is a nice functionality of this tool. You will find here lots of problems with the serial numbers. This was a systematic problem within this airline. Also with the interval. So you will have problems with your planning because you lack planning values over here. And you will have problems with the whole supply chain, the warehouse management, the stock management, because you lack some very important information about the serial number. We'll go on that in a bit of a detail on the next slide. So what are some impacts in real life in the maintenance planning? Actually, if you don't have this kind of data, no practical planning activity is possible. If you lack interval information, these airlines relied a lot on trying to plan with just days, block days, but didn't much for actually planning with life cycles, with flight hours and flight cycles on a component level. So there you may be finding a lot of, let's call it a lot of gaps in terms of efficiency. Of course, there's not a possibility to do a capacity analysis, like Valerie said. And when it comes to the stations, you do need to have very clear information about the capacity of each station in order to be able to plan ahead, to plan in an efficient way your maintenance. And in this case, connected to that is, of course, the predictive part. If we are not able to plan, we're not able to predict also how certain scenarios on the maintenance side will look like.
Do you have, Carlos, a way to automate the cleaning of this data to make it more complete and more usable? Or is there like already machine learning applications that are available?
Yeah, there's well, there are some software providers that this is already for you. Like the whole service is just data management. You start by defining a data strategy, and out of that, then you define the specific functionalities of algorithms that can clean up your data. You can come up with some ad hoc algorithms as well that you can produce in-house in order to clean up your data. This is absolutely positively. I'm going to talk about some of the ideas in order to start cleaning up the data in a couple of slides. But yes, it's possible. Another example I brought is a bit more, let's call it a bit more, creating more impact in terms of efficiency, in terms of financial impact as well. We see here components are not, there's no longer an example about very basic parts. This is a component that it could be very critical, and as well, we're lacking the serial number here, and this is quite critical because the serial number is basically the name of the part, the name of the component, and it's the element in the information that we rely on in order to trace down all the work we need to do, all the work we need to plan, all the things we need to forecast, all the needs we need to just store in terms of data in order to be able to do some analysis. You see also the systematic problem we saw before with unavailable planning values. So what we have here is a component which is critical, but which is not traceable to that very detailed level. So on the let's call it on the financial view or point of view of things, you may be still able to fly your airplane to do your maintenance, but you won't be managing your maintenance to the component level. So you won't be able to apply kind of analysis to this level because you lack the traceability. This is, like I said at the beginning, very extreme example. It's not the case in all of the airlines, but it is a real example. So just to close the loop on data quality, I brought you some ideas on a practical basis to improve the data quality. Of course, we already talked about the idea of using algorithms, of using machine learning, and some software that already gives us this kind of service to clean up data. But right now that we have a lot of time in our organizations due to the crisis, you can start just by looking at your very basic relational databases in SQL, in Excel, whatever you may want to use it, and start looking for missing attributes. Blank fields like the ones we saw before with the serial number. There are some very evident sets of data that you can see with the naked eye that's all the way wrong. There are some inconsistencies in spelling as well. This is also a systematic problem we see always again. There are no naming conventions in terms of how we name our data elements or data values in our databases. So you may find some element, some component being the same component, but because of the differences or the inconsistencies in spelling, you cannot correlate that data at the end. So this are some small steps you can start with.
This all sounds very believable, but when you're talking about an implementation with I don't know how many aircraft parts and processes, what does this look like in reality? Valerie?
Yes, thank you, Erin. We have heard a lot, as you already indicated now, about the theory, and now let's also jump maybe into a more practical example, into a concrete example of a previous project that we did with an American carrier in the past. I specifically chose this project because it was also the fact that here the cost on the one hand and flexibility were the main motivators for this airline to start a project with us. Their target was to lower their overall cost position, which included both increasing aircraft availability and decreasing maintenance costs, without compromising the already high level of flexibility that they had in their flight operations. Here we also started with talking a lot with the customer about their targets. We collected data, their flight plan, maintenance program, maintenance network, planning values, and so on, to start into a simulation of possible alternative maintenance concepts. In this case, the customer had already established a phase check concept, and we looked at different alternatives. So these charts here are just to give you an example how our approach looks like. What we do is we take these target dimensions that I've already talked about, and we compare different KPIs that deal with those target dimensions, like, for example, the total amount of ground time or the number of ground time slots of a specific length, and we compare those along different concepts to find the maintenance concept that is best fitting to an airline situation. So in this case, as I said, the customer had already established a phased check concept where all the A-check items were performed with every weekly check. But those individual checks were not technically optimized and were also performed with a very low yield, which led to a high maintenance effort. At the same time, they were not really standardized, so they had a high number of single running tasks, which led not only to a high planning effort, but also to a high level of responsibility for the individual planner. In this new concept that we developed, we decoupled the weekly check from the A-check modules and optimized the A-check modules, which enabled the customer to increase the utilization of his line maintenance tasks significantly, and which also resulted in a lower planning effort because the A-check modules were more standardized. And with those measures, the carrier was able to save $1 million per year on his fleet. At the same time, the adapted structure of the phased concept enabled shorter ground times for maintenance. So in the end, the airline actually had more overall night stops, but they required less long night stops, which gave them what they needed, namely more flexibility for flight scheduling to schedule flights throughout the daytime and the early hours of the morning or the late hours of the night. So once this maintenance concept is set up and it is clear which tasks should be performed in which work packages, the maintenance concept in the end answers the question of which work should be performed when and where, so that you do the right work packages at the right time and in the right place. And of course, this then also has to be implemented. We have talked already about bridging, which is one important factor, but also it might be the case, depending on the maintenance concept, that the network and the capabilities within the network might have to be adapted. So what also needs to be looked at during the implementation is the station capabilities. Are there shifts in the capabilities? Are there shifts required in manpower? And so on, yes. Yeah, so then this actually brings me to the end of this example. What we have prepared, if there's time, is to talk a little bit about how those changes in the network can be supported by automation.
Just on a side note, I think just the message is that you can automate everything you want to. It's just about the criticality of the processes. So bear in mind that.
So Anne, if you would like to give us your key takeaways from today, that would be great before we lead into the question period.
Of course. So now we are in the call for about 45 minutes, and I want really to summarize for all of you the key points that you can check for yourself and that also can support you during the next days, the next weeks and months, even maybe years. As we are all knowing that's difficult, you can check for these items. So if you are really well prepared, then you could answer all my upcoming questions actually with yes. So the first one would be, is your maintenance relevant data like planning values, like stock information available in your system, but not just available, also complete and correct. So if you have the time now, better check it. On the other hand, is your operations right now focused on cost efficiency and flexibility? There are more things to come, so saving money and being flexible in times of maybe increasing or even falling demand is really a topic. The third one would be, have you used your time now with the low aircraft utilization, maybe even parking, to do adaptation of your maintenance concept? Even if you don't implement a new one, maybe think about making some little adjustments on the one or the other hand to make it better fit to your actual situation. And then also there's the point that you maybe use this time now to modify your system in a way that it automatically updates with changing in the planning process. So in ideal case, you change something and then automatically everything is routed according to your changes. So I think if you are all able to answer these questions with, yes, I've done that, or yeah, it's on my bucket list to be done within the next weeks, I think then you are well prepared for a head start. Otherwise, maybe think about that, and now I'm happy to answer your questions, and maybe not just me, also my colleagues are happy to answer your questions.
Thanks, Anne. We do have a few questions actually, and we have to make it a little bit quick because we had some technical difficulties and it all took a bit more time. One of my questions would be, with regards to predictive planning, most of the data that you are using is data from a much fuller supply in the market, so data from past years. How does this data now be reflected with the falling supply and the falling demand in terms of your maintenance concept? Can you still use it? How do you have to adapt it in these days?
Looking into data, it's really a topic of how is your maintenance concept set up. So are there many tasks which are due because of flight hours and flight cycles, and of course these are low nowadays, then there's really a good opportunity for you to check and adjust, because now with the low utilization of your aircrafts, these figures are not raising as usually. So that's would be my recommendation, to look first into all your tasks and check how many are dependent on these hours and cycle values, and check for them first prior to looking into other things.
Okay, perfect. I'll ask this now. We have a new question in the chat to Valerie. So in a sense, MaintWise is fine-tuning the drawbacks of previous service. Why didn't the operations feel like optimizing? Another fooling question. Are we reducing our monetary inflow by making it easier and more efficient for the airlines?
Yes. A very interesting couple of questions. I try to touch all of those topics. So the first one, fine-tuning the drawbacks of previous services. I'm assuming you mean like previous maintenance services. Yes, it can be, but we see it more like a strategic approach to your maintenance. So it's not about planning from event to event, but it's about taking a step back and looking at the overall maintenance concept in order to make sure that each and every check and each and every maintenance service that an airline gets is optimized as much as possible.
Okay, Anne, so because this is a continuous improvement process, can we say that MRO is nowadays even more relying on lean manufacturing?
I think lean for an MRO is every time a good idea. So yeah, please do focus on that. And also for your customers, if you are an MRO, really look into what can be optimized. Usually, of course, you get the packages from your customer and they have to advise you what to do, but I'm sure they are happy if you are supporting with some optimization ideas. And lean, of course, is always important for your processes. Yeah.
Okay, great. I have a last question for Carlos. What are the human factors to consider in this situation where lots of people are furloughed or they're leaving the industry for other jobs?
I think it's an important question we need to we need to focus on. It's the human factor is basically where we rely, or in this case, our new maintenance concepts on for actually taking them to reality. I think that the most important thing to do right now is, of course, to focus on the actual situation, on the reality that we face right now. Lots of people going, skilled people, people where we invested a lot of time, a lot of resources in getting them to the level where they are on their skill set. And losing them is a loss, not just for right now, but for also for the ramp-up phase of when we start to recover. So I think that's the most important thing to focus on, how our revamping phase, how our recovering phase could look like, and considering this, what do we need to do to keep very skilled people with us, because we will need them in the future. I think it's a very generic answer, but I think it's where we need to really focus on.
Okay, thank you. I think we have time for one last question. We have, but we're going to make it really quickly. Okay. We've talked a lot about data. We've talked a lot about lean optimization. Is there any other last, wisdom that you guys can impart on the group? If you have limited resources as an airline, where do you look first? Like, what is the one thing you need to do? Carlos?
Well, in terms of data, focus on what you already can change. Yeah, there are a lot of things you can do manually. You don't need so fancy, sophisticated algorithms to do so. And but focus on criticality. All the processes that are critical, or the components that are critical for an airline, for an aircraft, are the ones that will have the most impact at the end, and at the bottom line as well, so on the financial side. So if you do a good criticality assessment, then you will be focusing on the right things from the beginning. Okay.
And just one last one. How can this classic maintenance concept for airlines be translated into other kind of adjacent industries, like the UAM sector, which is growing a lot, or helicopter maintenance? Is this transferable, or is this really something that should be kept with classic airline? Anne?
It's definitely transferable. Actually, every carrier, being it an airline, being it a helicopter operator, maybe being it somebody else like a train operator, they all have their documents that needs to be followed, some kind of maintenance data that needs to be done and performed. And that's why a maintenance concept is, for all of these fields, a positive thing and can support in being more efficient. So irrespectively of the field of operation, it's a way to think about.
Okay, thank you so much. Valerie, any last words before we close out?
I just really wanted to make one other point to the first question that we received, because I think the previous services was just one aspect of the question. It also says, why didn't the operators feel like optimizing, and are we reducing our monetary inflow? So to the optimizing question, I think, of course, it's always the target of operators to optimize as much as possible. What we have seen is that there's often one topic that there's in daily operations in the business just not enough time to take that strategic step back and look at your maintenance concept from the strategic point of view, because you don't have the resources. And that's exactly where MaintWise comes into play. And that's exactly also one additional thing or a chance that this crisis can bring us right now, because we have the time to look at those issues from a more strategic perspective.
Okay. We are out of time. Thank you so much for all of your questions to the audience and all of your answers from the speakers. We do have some more questions coming in, a great one with regard to digital twin, but unfortunately we are out of time. I would ask you all to send your questions to us and we will answer them individually, no problem. We have here a get in touch slide. You can use the QR codes to find everybody on LinkedIn. You can ask the questions there. Reach out to any of us. It's absolutely our pleasure to help you. And I wanted to say a big thank you for all of you for tuning in and tell you that we have a couple of other events coming up. Within the next few weeks, we have a pricing event, which is going to be focusing on NDC and different types of pricing relevant to our industry, to be held on the 25th of November. And we also have our Urban Air Mobility and eVTOL series, which we have been putting together. We had the first event last week and the video should be up either this afternoon or tomorrow. So check that out on LinkedIn and on our website. And we have the next series of events coming up on this very exciting topic with things like the fight for airspace between classical aviation and this future aviation, as well as another MRO digital maintenance topic, operations, commercial, how to set up your vendor network, sustainability, and we've already booked really, really fantastic speakers for this series. So please come and join us. And again, the recording of this event will be on LinkedIn. Maybe we edit out some of the problems that we had earlier with the technical issues. And please come and join us to watch the event on LinkedIn after the fact and comment, like, share, and all of that kind of good stuff. And hope to see you soon. Thank you.